Hi again and welcome back. Guess what? You've made it to part 6 in this series of videos, a beginner's guide to music direction in musical theatre. So far we've looked at your role as the music director, knowing what's expected of you, choosing productions, some basic conducting technique, the audition process, music rehearsals and working with your production colleagues during the rehearsal process itself. Now we're hopefully heading to the theatre or venue and about to embark on the technical rehearsal, the dress rehearsal and of course the performance itself. Please do subscribe by hitting the button below so you can be informed when further videos are released and have access to all the other videos in the series. Also, continue to ask me any questions in the comments box. I want to hear from you and your experience. Maybe there's something specific you want me to cover. If so, let me know. Okay, let's make a start then with the technical rehearsal. So then, what is the purpose of the technical rehearsal? Well, the answer is there in the question really. It's now the time for the backstage team to do their stuff. This is sometimes the rehearsal or more than one rehearsal to ensure that the production is to run as smoothly as possible with all things technical. Given the complexity of these days of some musicals and the musical numbers they include, I personally like to try and run all the musical numbers at such a rehearsal, if at all possible, time permitting of course. It may not always be necessary to include the company in these rehearsals, but please be mindful there may be numerous lighting cues, for instance, incorporated within a production number, and the crew will need to rehearse these. During this rehearsal, as the music director, always be mindful of the amount of time it takes for the crew to move from one scene to another. You need to ask yourself, is there enough music to cover this change? And if not, another problem you need to solve. You will also need to establish from the stage manager what your cues are. For instance, how are you going to be cued to start the overture or the entracte, or start the performance in general? Many venues have some kind of cue lighting system which will assist in this. Something that is sometimes left until the last minute are the walk-ons, the bows, who's best, as I've heard it called sometimes. There is music written for this sometimes, and this needs to be rehearsed in time, but don't leave it until the technical rehearsal. And then we come to encores. Very rarely nowadays are encores written into a musical score. If it's decided that an encore is to take place, it should always be planned in advance. Remember, this should never be a decision taken in isolation with just the director, music director and the band or artist. Anything unplanned during the production will have a significant effect on fellow technical colleagues. My advice would be, don't ever deviate from what's being produced in the rehearsal room. One of the technical elements of a musical production close to my heart is sound. If you are in the centre of a pit conducting and playing, remember you are not in the perfect position to make any judgment on sound balance. This is where you need to put your faith in a good sound technician. I'd like to think it's not the case, but this may be the first time your technicians have heard the production and the musical backing. Give the technicians time. I once ran a course for music direction at a local university that was alongside other courses involved in theatre disciplines. One of those courses was theatre sound design. As part of one of my lectures, I invited the tutor to the sound design course to speak to my students. And one of the questions he was asked was, how as the music director can I best help the sound designer or sound technician? The answer was clear. Please give us time, was the reply. We must always remember that we as music directors and the company have worked on a particular production for months. The technical crew, including those responsible for the overall sound of your production, hasn't. Don't expect the perfect sound from the technical rehearsal. I'm sure there are numerous tutorial videos on sound design available online, and I'm not going to attempt to compete with their expertise. But this one simple answer to that question gave me as a music director a very clear and concise requirement from those technical experts that know a far deal more about sound design within theatre than I do. As with all other rehearsals, at the end of the technical rehearsal, give notes and remember to include any notes you have for the technical crew. So we've now reached the point of the dress rehearsal where hopefully the vast majority of all technical issues have been overcome. We now have costumes, scenery, lighting, sound ready for what is hopefully the last run through and rehearsal before you're in front of a live audience. In an ideal world, which we all strive for of course, only the stage manager or assistant stage manager would or should stop a dress rehearsal. And this would either be on health and safety grounds or in the event something has occurred which means the production cannot continue for whatever reason. Having said that, I've known many dress rehearsals to be stopped by various individuals, usually because something hasn't been fixed or clarified. And this is virtually always down to time constraints. Amateur theatre does not have the luxury of sometimes weeks, if not months in a venue to prepare. Once the dress rehearsal is finished, it's then time to give final notes and thanks and words of encouragement on behalf of you as the music director to all your fellow colleagues both on stage and off. So after all that preparation, we've reached the first night performance. Okay, yes, thank you. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Thank you. Enough. Was that too much? Bit corny graphics. I'll cut it out in the edit. We could at this point ask ourselves what musically can go wrong and how can we correct this? One of the biggest issues in my experience during a live performance is actors missing their vocal entries. This can then be made worse by an actor continuing and begin singing where they had previously stopped, regardless of what we in the band or orchestra may be doing. If this late vocal entry is a matter of 1 or even 2 bars, more experienced musicians and musicians that are familiar with the score will, without even thinking of it, make a necessary adjustment. If you become aware that the band is out of sync with the vocalist and it's clear that the vocalist is continuing regardless, one can resort to vocalising bar numbers as the music progresses in the hope that the band members out of sync will soon realise the problem at hand. They usually do. Actors sometimes dry. For all manner of reasons, they forget their lyrics or stumble over their lyrics. Sometimes they may skip to another verse. I've even known actors repeat a verse of a number the second time. In all cases, I am a very strong believer that a music director should concentrate on every vocal lyric throughout the entire score. Giving cues to vocalists just by looking up at them and giving them a strong downbeat will be of no assistance to a vocalist whatsoever if he or she is wanting assistance lyrically. Not only miming the lyric, but sometimes one needs to be prepared to physically vocalise the lyric. These are just a handful of the issues encountered in the life of the music director during live performance. If there are any others, then let me know in the comments box below, and together let's come up with some solutions. I'm currently looking to put together a video on using click tracks or backing tracks in live musical performance. But if there's anything else on the subject of music technology you think we should include, please let me know. So that brings us to the end of part 6 in this series of videos. In the next video, we're going to take a step backwards and we're going to be concentrating on selecting your band or orchestra. In the production you're working on, it may be orchestrated for say 24 musicians, but your group can only afford 12. How do you choose? We'll also be looking at traditional string players versus keyboard players using samples. This might be somewhat controversial. I hope you'll join me next time.